Welcome back to the November 2017 Candidate Forum. This segment of the forum covers the contested Escanaba City Council. There are 5 candidates vying for 3 open seats for a 4-year term on council. They are Patricia Baraboo, Ralph Blazier, Catherine Hart, Peggy O'Connell-Schumann, and Mark Tall. Candidate Patricia Baraboo was unable to attend this evening and sent an email explaining she had surgery yesterday and offered her apologies. We wish her well. The format of this segment will remain the same as the Gladstone Commission. Each candidate will have 1 minute for an opening statement, 1 minute to respond to each question, and 1 minute for a closing statement. Candidates will be asked questions in a rotating order. The candidates will be answering questions submitted by the audience and collected by pages. Written audience questions can be offered by raising your hand. Our question screeners may combine questions or reword questions for clarification or to avoid redundancy. We will use as many questions from the audience as time allows. Each candidate will have the opportunity to respond to each of the questions asked, as this is a forum and not a debate. We ask that the candidates respond to the question asked by the moderator and not to each other. Please be respectful of other candidates. You are, however, free to address any appropriate issue during your opening and closing remarks. A timer will be used, and when time is up, a beep will sound. When the time expires, the speaker must end the response. I will then move the question to the next candidate. Council members represent the citizens of Escanaba. They are charged with governing the city. They pass ordinances and establish budgets and policies affecting Escanaba and its residents. The City Council has the power to hire the city manager and city attorney and to appoint citizens to serve on numerous advisory boards and commissions. I will now introduce the candidates for their opening statements, beginning with Mr. Ralph Blazier. 1 minute, sir.
Yes. I've been on the City Council approximately 5 years. I filled a 1-year vacancy due to death, and then I ran 2 times for 3-year terms. I've had fun doing it. I think I've done my duty well. I've tried to bring a lot of detailed analysis to all the issues that come before us. Many of our issues are technical and or legal, and I have a good background in both. I'm a surgeon and I've done a lot of graduate school work and research, and I'm training all my practice books. I've tried to do my duty well, and I think I have. I've had a lot of community involvement. I wrote the articles in the corporation for the Delta Animal Shelter, Inc., 403C corporation. I take on the classes at Bay, and I'm taking welding now because I fought welding last term. It's very fun in there. Although I'm doing much better this term because I bought the glasses and I can see. I think it's not so hard.
Thank you. Our next opening statement will be from candidate Catherine Hart.
Thank you so much. My name is Catherine Hart. I've lived in Escanaba for 8 years. My mother is from here. My grandparents are from here. My mom moved me to California when I was 2, and not by my choice, but I came back here 8 years ago with the intent of not staying long, and now with the future plan of never leaving. I've always loved Escanaba dearly, and I think I'm one of the opposites of what we normally see. Usually people will grow up, go to college, and leave not to come back. I would like to see Escanaba become a place where my children can either go to college or come back and start a family and have some employment. I've been a nurse for the last 6 years in Escanaba. In California, I also served many different populations. I'm good at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next responder will be candidate Peggy O'Connell-Schumann.
Hi. Escanaba is a great place to live, and I chose to come back here and raise my family after being away for 17 years. I came back because of family, the water, and the incredible opportunities that our beautiful small town offers, and I brought my business with me. Since I returned, I've worked to build our community through employment and service. I'm currently the president of the Escanaba Downtown Partners in Business, and I own 2 businesses on Ludington Street, Sign Up and Positively. I love and promote not only the downtown, but Escanaba and Delta County as a whole. I know the role of a council member from my service as a school board trustee. I understand that council members are policymakers. It's a great responsibility to make those policies based on fact and sound reasoning for the benefit of the citizens that you represent, and not on emotion or the loudest voices on social media. I have the ability and stomach to make tough decisions and problem solve.
Thank you. Our next responder will be candidate Mark Tall.
Good evening. I'm Mark Tall. My wife and I moved to Escanaba 40 years ago. Yeah, that means I wasn't born here, but I got here as quick as I could. I'd like to thank you for your interest in the future of our city and for the trust you showed in me when you elected me 4 years ago. I'm proud to have been a part of a number of needed, worthwhile projects in these last 4 years. We sold the power plant, we resurfaced Ludington Street, and we hired a new city manager. But it's time to look ahead. My top priority is jobs. Just like you, I'm tired of seeing many of our high school graduates move away to go to college and then live somewhere else for the rest of their lives. It's happened for generations here in the UP, and it happened in my own family. We need to do what we can to help local businesses grow and to encourage others to start and expand here. Thank you for your interest, and I hope you'll vote for me on November 7th.
Thank you. The first question this evening will go to Catherine. What are the top 3 infrastructure issues that should be addressed by the city?
This is a familiar question. One of the issues that we saw this year was the dumping of waste stormwater into the bay. To me, I'm very passionate about preserving our water and keeping that clean and as a resource for recreation for everybody to enjoy. I would like to see dialogue or hear dialogue and explore words like sustainability. I think we do need to step outside the realm of what is the traditional in this town or in any town and explore other avenues that can take us perhaps into the next few generations while also serving who we have here.
Thank you. The next responder will be Peggy Schumer.
I believe our 3 top needs as far as infrastructure are not unlike many other cities in the UP. Our electric, our streets, and then, as Catherine said, our wastewater problem this summer. It was very disturbing to read about wastewater being only partially treated and pumped out into the bay. And I think communication could have minimized that slightly, but that's for a longer response. Also streets. It was wonderful to have Ludington Street repaved, but it's kind of a temporary fix. We have a lot of other issues on repaving our streets, but it's what's underneath the streets that we have to fix first, and that's a far more costly issue. There are a lot of things under Ludington Street that need to be replaced for the buildings that are there, our sewers downtown, our water lines downtown, and that's throughout the older parts of town where we need to address those issues.
Thank you. Mr. Tall?
We have, in my mind, 3 priorities for infrastructure improvements. I've been a strong advocate for fixing more roads within our community. The list of roads that need repair seems to grow every year because we're simply not keeping up with what we've got. The roads deteriorate faster than we have been able to fix them. Another priority is expanding the capacity or making improvements in the system at our wastewater plant, so we will no longer have, in an emergency, to have the difficult choice of, well, absolutely not a difficult choice. It was either put it in the bay or put it in people's basements, and we made the right decision there. The 3rd priority is fixing our water lines. We have a number of water lines that are leaking, and they need to be repaired also. Those are my top 3.
Thank you. Mr. Blader?
Yeah, 60 seconds isn't enough to do justice to all of this, so I'll just name 3 topics and say, okay, streets, it's obvious, water supply, we lose at least 40% of what we make. But what I can spend some time on is sewerage and storm sewers. The problem with the dumping sewage wasn't that the plant is big enough to handle all the sewage Escanaba makes, because we can. The problem is rainwater intrusion from several sources. Number one, groundwater. We have lots of leaks in the sewerage system, so everywhere there's groundwater, the groundwater enters the sanitary system, which has to be processed. Next, all sump pumps in the city dump into the sanitary system instead of the storm system like they should. So what happens is we get a normal amount of human waste plus enormous amounts of rainwater, and the volume is too much to treat. So in the end, we dump it overboard. How can we fix that? Number one, fix the leaky pipes. Number two, increase the capacity, at least temporarily, of the sewage treatment plant by a holding pond. You know, hold.
Thank you. Our second question will begin with Ms. Schuman. Do you support the establishing of a recovery center for addicts? If you support it, what would you do to promote the facility?
I absolutely support it. In the right place and with the right planning. There was one proposed right near a building that I own, and I think people got the perception that it was not in my backyard, but it was more based on the location, the zoning, and the structure itself. If someone is in recovery, they deserve to be in a place that's conducive to recovery and a place that's actually a nice place to live. But also we have to respect the property rights of those who have already developed areas where it is. And there are plenty of places for this, and actually afterwards I have talked to different people who are involved with this, with the recovery house, and came up with an alternate location that works better. I like to be proactive on those things.
Thank you. Mr. Paul?
Yes, and I believe everyone in town would be in favor of the creation of such a home, but it's the finding of the site that is always going to be the problem. I wish the developers all the luck in the world in finding such a location.
Thank you. Mr. Glazer?
Just to be humane, addicts need places to live while they're recovering. It was brought up by Peggy here that there was such a proposal, but the proposal was within a block and a half of no less than 4 bars and 3 blocks of major drug houses, so probably a bad site for recovery. Finding the place that's ideal is going to be really hard. The city's not going to buy it. The best the city can do is not give it away.
Thank you. Ms. Hart?
I absolutely would support a recovery center for addicts, and I think I'll share with all of you that I have a sister that had a drug overdose, so this hits very close to home for me. I would be in support of it being wherever there was a better outcome for achieving success, but I also think we need to be very much more proactive in what's leading to these issues in our town, and reach out to the youth and try and cut that off before it turns into a problem for them later. So I think, treating the problem is fantastic, or what's happening, but getting to the root cause would be a lot more productive.
Thank you. The next question will be given to Mr. Tall first. Has the City Council deferred too much authority to the DDA regarding issues facing the city? And please explain your response.
As the city's mayor, I sit by statute on the DDA, so no, I don't believe the city has delegated too much authority to the DDA. We work together in this community. We have for decades, and I hope that will continue in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Glazer.
No, we have not delegated too much. The city barely noticeably pays anything to the DDA. there is the incremental tax income, which does go to the DDA. But since we're not really directly paying them, I don't think we should directly try to control them. And they do a lot of good stuff. They've managed most of the facade improvements. Now, most of that money comes from the state, but it's administered a lot through the DDA. We put $1.4 million into that 2015. That's the last year I have the numbers for. And the MDEC, administered by the DDA, paid $960,000 of it. In other words, 70%. They do a lot of good stuff. Rib Fest, Arena Fest, Christmas Parade, Pasty Drop, Black Friday on Tuesday, annual downtown cleanup, snow removal for the parking lots, downtown street plowing.
Thank you. Ms. Hart?
There will be some questions, the specifics I'm not privy to because of my lack of experience in City Council up until this moment. But what I will say is that I support having a DDA. I also support and like to see each other, cities and different boards work together, hold each other accountable, and make sure that we are seeing results and a results-driven program that serves the community. I like to see community involvement. I don't think necessarily a DDA should be controlled, but there should be input from the citizens at large.
Thank you. 1 minute, Ms. Schuman.
I'm very familiar with the DDA. I actually sat on the DDA board for a few years. And I think the DDA is extremely misunderstood. The DDA does a lot downtown with the facade improvements, administering that. We've gone through a lot of directors, and we finally have some stabilization with Ed ago. And I think he's doing a good job. He's also learning the job as he goes along. But I think people have a misunderstanding as to what the DDA is. The downtown partners do all the promotion downtown, but it's with the support of the DDA. And that has freed them up to be able to do more with facade improvements and working to develop buildings downtown and fix some things up and improve that. And I think we are very much moving in the right direction, and I very much support the DDA.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Mr. Glacier. Ann, what suggestions do you have for safe bicycling and traffic flow on city streets?
That's a very true question. It's going to take more than a minute. It's already illegal to operate a bicycle on sidewalk in the business district. That's Chapter 27, Section 400A. It's already illegal. We're not enforcing it. I don't think I would like to keep that law and force the bikes into the street, because if we have parallel parking, we're going to have bikes running into opening car doors. If we have diagonal parking, cars are going to back into the bikes. So I would do it with signage. There'd be signs at the beginning and the end of the business district saying bicycles, if you can, use First Avenue South and First Avenue North for your east-west travel. If you have to travel on sidewalks, every block would have a sign that says bicycles and pedestrians. And every storefront would have a sign at the exit that says, pedestrian, shopper, look left and right for bicycles before you step out the store. I could go on and along. I wrote 3 or 4 pages about it here when Louis Voters asked me opinions, but I can't speak at all in a minute.
Thank you. Ms. Hart?
I think that walkability and bikeability is vital to the growth and sustainability of Escanaba. I agree it becomes tricky to think about how we would do it with parallel versus horizontal park or diagonal parking. But I think it can happen. I think our diagonal spots are very long. Perhaps they could be pushed back and that bike lane could be along the gutter. I don't know what the exact answer is, but I actually loved just now hearing about Gladstone's bike path and all of that, and I think that would be vitally essential to drawing in younger people, younger entrepreneurs, and having that accessibility.
Thank you. Ms. Schuman?
Being that I actually own 2 businesses on Livingston Street and a couple other buildings, I know the issues about bicycling. My mother was run into by a bicycle about 6 or 8 years ago, and she's in her 80s at the time. The bikes that are going down Ludington or down the sidewalks, for the most part, are not tourists. or people just riding for pleasure. There are a lot of young people like on a mission, on their cell phones with their headphones on. It would be really nice if we could divert that traffic to First Avenue North or South, but still do something on our sidewalks to allow bicyclists who are there for recreation, who are there just, to get by the stores and be able to transport themselves that way. But I do like the idea of the signs going out. We do have those in one of my buildings where it says, look. But I like how mine have the little alcoves so that people can step out and not get run over. But it really is an issue with skateboards and bicycles coming too close to the buildings. And we, maybe with markings on the sidewalks or doing something creative to invite the bicyclists, but in a way that...
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
Personally, I don't like the idea of bike riders of any age, but especially children, riding up and down Lebanon Street. I think it's too dangerous for them and too easy for the drivers pulling out of parking stalls or just driving down the street to have a mishap. I think what will end up out of this issue is some kind of signage that encourages a sharing of the sidewalk, yielding by the bicycles to anyone who is walking at that time down the sidewalk. We are in the midst of this issue in the city. A report is still to come to the council from the DDA with their thoughts and recommendations. And I believe early in December we will make decisions on that. The council at that time, should I be there, that's what I'm thinking today.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Mr. Glazier.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm willing if you want.
Would you support the proposed sale of the current Chamber of Commerce building and allow the money to be used to construct a new building in a more accessible location?
Well, that is one I have to tell you I haven't thought of until right this very moment. But I think that it probably would be more beneficial in a location enveloped more by businesses. I think it's sort of the Lone Star down there at the end, and I think that area would be wonderful to give back to the citizens in some sort of recreational way. So yes, I would consider it with the right planning.
Thank you. Ms. Schuman?
I guess some of those things would be, who would the building be sold to? Would it be sold for a commercial venture or to just increase the size of our park? We've got great park space, but it would be nice to have some kind of development down there. And also, not sure who currently owns the building or the land that it's on. I know there are different properties down there. If it's owned by the city, then that's something that we have to look at. But it's that planning thing. It's if you're doing this, what's going to be there? It's not just, oh, let's sell it and have this land there. What's going to be there? And yes, if it belongs to the chamber or it belongs to the city and to build another building, definitely. The chamber is a gateway to people finding out information about what's available in our community. And to have it somewhere that's more accessible and easier to find would be great.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
The corner that the chamber building is on belongs to the city. We lease it to the chamber for $1 a year. We're halfway through a $99 lease. As a part of the future plan on redeveloping the jail property, as well as the 300 feet of waterfront property the city owns, we are going to, in late 2018 or early 2019, be asking for ideas from developers who might have a thought about what they would like to develop on the property, all three parcels, the chamber parcel, the jail property, and the waterfront property. I'm hopeful that a developer or two or many will step forward with their ideas on how that would enhance that part of our community.
Thank you. Mr. Glazier?
I was not aware that there was a serious proposal to buy or sell that land. For one thing, I don't think they can sell the land. They might be able to sell the structure. I'm privy to the same information that the mayor is. The County of Delta and the City of Escanaba are jointly pursuing, issuing a request for proposals for that land. That's the waterfront that splits Kovacic's pier, about 80% of the jail, and plus or minus the land upon which the chamber now sits. Obviously, we've had no takers yet, and I wouldn't expect so because the jail property is not going to become available until at least 2018. So we'll have to see what comes in the mail.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Peggy O'Connell Schumann. And what steps do you think should be taken to rectify the blight of empty or dilapidated buildings in our community?
I think the first step would be to work with the property owners on whether or not the buildings can be rehabilitated. If they cannot be fixed or taken care of, then I guess it would be up to those building owners to take the buildings down and dispose of them and either sell the property or let it revert back to the city to be developed into, park space. We've talked about in different locations in downtown Escanaba where buildings need to be taken down, about making that into green space and, little pocket parks or mini parks downtown for people to be able to go for lunches or, walk-throughs or pass-throughs to back parking lots, which would be actually quite nice to be able to utilize more of those back parking lots, because believe it or not, there are times in downtown Escanaba when the streets are full, and if people aren't utilizing back entrances, then it would be nice to have those pass-throughs to get to Ludington Street to the businesses.
Thank you. Mr. Tall?
I agree that there are buildings in our community that are beyond hope and should be taken down. Those that are simply empty and able to be rehabilitated, I believe that the city already is and should continue to work with those property owners to seek new tenants, to rehabilitate where possible, to make changes any way we can help, we should.
Thank you. Mr. Blazer?
If we can rehabilitate a building, we should, because it stays on the tax rolls for that piece of property. But the city can't do that. We're not going to pay money to rehabilitate buildings. So the best we can do is try to work with the property owners and hope they can do the best. If the condition of the building is so bad it can't be rehabbed, we can attempt to compel the owner to take it down. Failing that, we can take it down and try to get the money from the owner. As far as what to do with the ground, it would be better to hope that somebody comes along and buys it for another building, because the green space isn't going to get to the tax rolls at all. Although green spaces are nice, that's all we can do.
Thank you. Ms. Hart?
Well, I love the idea of repurposing when possible, and I think that's always a good thing. If we're talking about buildings strictly in the downtown area, I think having some green space is a great idea, but all of these buildings, be it downtown or the industrial areas in Northtown, including Delta Plaza Mall, which I just believe was bought again by Dial Properties. I think these are great opportunities to encourage young entrepreneurship and offer, see if we can work with who is owning them. And I mean, I'll rent that property for $1 a year at the chamber, and maybe somebody could do something there. But this is, I hate to see some of the historical buildings go. I would like to get input and involvement from the community on what is needed. I did talk about, I'll stop there.
Our next question will first go to candidate Mark Hall. Knowing that over 1/3 of occupied housing units in the city are occupied by renters, well above the state average, do you think the city has done enough to promote market-rated, multifamily, or clustered housing in our community? Can you explain your answer, please?
Have we done enough? We respond to ideas from developers. Someone walks into City Hall or picks up the phone and talks to the city manager and says, I'm interested in the business of developing housing. And he talks about available spaces within our city that is zoned properly for their ideas. I don't think it's the city's job to build such housing, but we can encourage those who do step forward and ask where it would be appropriate. I also believe that I'd like to see an increase in the number of condos available in our community, and I will continue to encourage those who I talk to about doing just that.
Thank you. Mr. Glazier?
I have similar thoughts. The city's not going to build these structures. Developers will have to build them, and we're trying to stay out of their way. We have done several PILTs, payment in lieu of taxes, where we've given property taxes on developers, but it turns out those are almost always rental units, with rare exceptions. I don't think we've ever done one for condos, and I'm not sure that we can. So the best we can do is work with developers, not impede their efforts, help them where we can, but not pay for them.
Thank you. Ms. Hart?
I like the idea of working with developers. Condos are certainly something I hear quite a bit about from senior citizens who no longer can maintain their two-story home with the bathroom on the second floor only. I think that's a great way to keep our seniors here and happy. I think we have to be very careful when working with developers that there is some input from the city and the community, and that we're looking at things with any developer, be it residential or commercial, asking them for stormwater plans and how it's going to benefit our community and not just the pockets of the developer.
Thank you. Ms. O'Connell?
With our aging population, I think we need to look at some of these things. We do need condos, we do need townhomes, and whether it be rental or ownership, but I think we also need to encourage home ownership in our community. We have a lot of affordable homes that people can buy, and with a high rate of renters, as you say, we have to look at where we're putting these, and as she said, with how it affects our utilities, how it affects our wastewater, how it affects the water, and again, have that as part of our planning, and more planning in this community.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Mr. Tall. Glazer, I'm sorry. In terms of... You noticed that. In terms of business and economic development, what do you view as the greatest opportunities and challenges in the next few years?
That's tough. For industrial development, I would have sold the city's lot that splits Kobasic's pier to Kobasic back when he could have made a straight pier. We didn't sell it to him. We couldn't come to an agreeable price. He doesn't own it now. He may never own it. And even if he could own it, the pier is going to have a dog leg in it because of technical things that it takes more than a minute to discuss. There's been a lot of small business job creation here. 8 days ago in this room, we heard from one of the Vickies about all the dozens of small apartment projects that go on. Each one doesn't hire thousands of people, but each one hires a dozen or so. So we're trying to make jobs to keep our youth here. At least we're doing better than we were 2 years ago. We haven't solved the problem yet.
Thank you. Ms. Hart?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
In terms of business and economic development, what do you view as the greatest opportunities and challenges in the next few years?
Well, I'm very excited about the solar energy project that is going on here in Escanaba at the moment, or being approached. And I think it's going to be newer industries, out-of-the-box industries like that we really need to explore, foster, nurture, and offer, possibly grow that and offer in our college settings and elsewhere. I also think that tourism is not dead. I refuse to believe that. I think it might have slowed quite a bit, but I think that it can come back. And you see it with Rick Mish of Mish Water Sports, who is renting the paddle boards down at the harbor seasonally and the jet skis over at the terrace. I think that's a fantastic illustration of younger entrepreneurship that we can really promote to get people to come in here.
Thank you. Ms. Schuman?
Well, we have a lot of opportunities in our area. Is so easy to afford to stay here and to build here. I am a returning person. I was gone for 17 years and brought my business back with me. We have all the things that a tech business or a work-at-home business or a small business needs to run up here. We have high-speed internet, we have overnight shipping, we have our airport, and it's very easy to do business up here. Our challenges are finding qualified employees once you're here. We need to quit exporting. Our children, our brightest and our best, are leaving the area and not coming back. But through marketing and advertising, maybe to graduates, both past and present, that we have all these things affordable. We have recreation here, we have recreation nearby. People talk about Marquette and the snow, and people don't necessarily want to live there, but living here, the recreation is so close by.
Thank you. Mr. Dahl?
I believe the best opportunity we have for economic development is helping those people who are already here to grow their businesses, to add employees there. In that report we heard a week or so ago from Vicki Schwab, she went on in great detail over the immense work her operation has done to encourage growth and to solve problems for our existing businesses here. She also talked about expanding the business world and looking in new directions. I was quite interested in what she said about fish farming. In a cooperation with the Hannahville community, they are looking at yellow perch farming in a building inside within the area. It's an interesting idea, and I'm quite hopeful that it will add to the employment base.
Our last question of the evening will begin with Ms. Hart. What steps would you take as a council member to ensure oversight of new developments and ensuring such things as curbing, paving, and sidewalks in those developments?
I'm very excited to work on the oversight of that because I believe that we should look at alternative forms of curbing and paving, be it more permeable surfaces and things that will help with our overflow of water. And again, this is another area that we can look at for economic growth and job growth. I would like to see different plans proposed, Plan A, Plan B, and what are not only the environmental impacts, but the longevity of each of these projects to make sure that it's worth the bang for the buck and a specific amount of timeline that these projects do last, or at the point at which they start to crumble and need reparations once again.
Thank you. Ms. Schuman?
Can you repeat the question, please?
What steps would you take as a council member to ensure the oversight of new developments in areas such as curbing, paving, and sidewalks?
Well, I think a good part of that is relying on our engineers and our staff to recommend what there is, but also to investigate. I mean, we live in the world of the internet, rely on looking at what other communities are doing to be inventive with things like this. What are they doing that's different? What are they doing that's, as she says, more sustainable? Things that maybe will last longer or are more accessible. Just relying on the professionals that are out there and then making decisions based on that.
Thank you. Mr. Dahl?
To the best of my knowledge, the city does now require curbing and paving sidewalks in new residential as well as commercial areas. Sometimes we have the problem of connecting those new areas with existing sidewalks, say. We have that example out at the new Meyer store. We're going to have a problem finding ways to get pedestrian traffic through that area where there is no sidewalk now. And we have motorized wheelchairs using the city streets to allow people to access those new buildings. It's a problem and we need to solve it.
Thank you.
Please state the question. I'm looking for one particular word. Go ahead.
What steps did you take as a council member to ensure oversight of new developments in areas such as curbing, paving, and sidewalks?
The words were ensure and oversight. Almost every aspect of paving, sidewalks, and curbs is defined by law. City ordinances, state laws, and a lot of federal laws. What we have to do is just have our engineering people make sure that we comply. I mean, you can't make a new curb now without defined curb cuts and defined little texture things for blind people. I mean, it's just all in the law. You just got to obey it.
Thank you. You have now come to the final minutes of our Escanaba City Council forum, when each of our candidates will be given 1 minute to make a closing statement. And we will begin with Ms. Schumer.
I just want to say I love this community. I returned here almost 20 years ago, and all my children are gone, and I stay because I love it here. I have no agenda. I have no issues. I have no problem with the people who are currently on council, but I think I bring a different perspective. As a person who owns 2 businesses and 4 buildings downtown, as well as a house on 2nd Avenue, I really have between budgeting and all the different things that I have to do on a daily basis on a business, it just brings something different. I see so many opportunities in our community, and I do want to be a positive and proactive person in this. And a lot of people have said, how do you do that when you own 2 businesses and you have all these things going? Well, you know what they say, if you're looking for something to be done, ask a busy person.
Thank you. Mr. Dahl?
Again, I'd like to thank you for your interest in our city. I'd like to thank the organizers of the evening's event for putting it together. The City Council will be making big decisions over the next 4 years, decisions that require thoughtful, careful consideration by council members who are committed to working for the future of the city, to talking, listening, living with the people right here in Escanaba. I have the desire, energy, experience, and commitment to continue to be an active member of the City Council, and I'm asking for your vote November 7th.
Thank you. Mr. Malaysia?
Everything I do in life, I throw my whole self into it. That includes cutting people open and drilling screw their bones and getting new glasses so I can take welding, but also City Council. I've done my duty very vigorously, I think, and very dutifully, and take it very seriously and give a lot of thought to every issue that comes before us. I'd like to continue to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Hart?
As a nurse, I am trained and skilled in serving and advocating just for everybody without judgment, which means that I look at people's views, I see their opinions, and I roll them around in my head. I don't dismiss them. I'd like to serve and advocate for Escanaba. I think Escanaba has tremendous potential. I don't think that potential has been met. I don't know if it will be met in 4 years, even if I am elected. However, I would like to be a part of growing it. I'm inspired to run by my grandparents. My grandmother was a director of nursing at Christian Park. I'm now director of nursing at Tender Care Munising, and my grandfather did a lot of civic work here in the community as well. If I have any motivation other than that, it's that I have 4 boys, and I'd like them not to live all over the country, but have a life here as well.
Thank you. Each candidate has now made their closing remarks. Thank you once again for participating in our forum this evening. We hope that the audience has found this evening informative and helpful in determining for whom they will vote. Please make your voice heard by voting on Tuesday, November 7th. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. For those unable to get to the polls, absentee ballots are available, and please contact your local clerk. Tonight's forum was sponsored by the Delta County League of Women Voters, the American Association of University Women, and the Delta County Area Chamber of Commerce. For further information on the upcoming election, go to our online voter guide at vote411.org. And remember to get out and vote. Your vote is important. Again, thanks to the City of Escanaba, the candidates, and you, the audience. On behalf of the American Association of University Women, the Delta County League of Women Voters, and the Delta County Area Chamber of Commerce, who sponsored the evening's forum, thank you and have a good evening.